Welcome back to Fantasy Bankroll. I'm your host, Robert Banker. Thank you so much for checking it out. And just like that, fantasy football fans, we waited all offseason, and week one's already in the book. I'm going to take a look back and see who stocks up and who stocks down from week one. I'm going to take a look ahead to week two and tell you who I'm hot and who I'm not on in my bearish and bullish list. But first, let's get started with that stock report. Let's go! All right, week one is weird, and you never know what you're going to get. But after every week, I'm going to take a look back and give you a list of players who I think their stock is up and a list of players who I think their stock is down. So let's take a look back and see who's trending in the right direction and who's trending in the wrong direction after week one. Let's get started by looking at the players whose stock is up after week one. All right, the quarterback on the stock up report this week, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Daniel Jones. Jones was efficient and took what the Dolphins D gave him, both passing and on the ground, throwing for 272 yards and 1 touchdown and adding 2 more on the ground. And the running back on my stock up report after week one, Jacksonville Jaguars running back Travis Etienne Jr. After questions all offseason what the backfield split would look like, Etienne put an end to that in week one, handling half of the team's 32 carries and turning that into 143 yards on the ground and pulling in all 3 of his targets. And the wide receiver on my stock up report this week, Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka was second on the team in target, but he still led the team with 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he clearly has Baker Mayfield's trust if you watch some of those throws. All right, the tight end on my stock up report after week one, Cleveland Browns tight end Harold Fannin Jr. Now, Fannin Jr. played over 70% of the snaps against the Bengals in week one, with over a quarter of those coming in the slot. And he caught 7 of 9 targets, which led the team. And he showcased some versatility by rushing the ball once as well. Now let's look at some of the players whose stock is down after week one. All right, the quarterback on my stock down list after week one, Denver Broncos quarterback Bo Nix. Now, after a top 10 fantasy finish last season, there was a lot of expectation for Nix coming into the season. But he finished week one with an abysmal QBR of 19.2, which would have been the worst in the league if the Dolphins didn't hawk Tua all over themselves in Indy. All right, the running back whose stock was down after week one, Seattle Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker III. Walker was outrushed by 61 players, including 16 quarterbacks in week one. But more importantly, his teammate Zach Charbonnet took full advantage of his opportunities to the tune of 3.9 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. Now, it's not sell time for Walker, but I'm in a holding pattern. All right, the receiver whose stock was down after week one was the Philadelphia Eagles receivers, all of them. With a combined 7 targets for the receivers in week one, and coming off a season in which Jalen Hurts didn't throw for over 3,000 yards or 20 touchdowns, it could be a tough year for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith owners on knowing which games you should be playing them in. All right, and the tight end whose stock was down after week one, Baltimore Ravens tight end Mark Andrews. Andrews only got 1 target in a 41-40 shootout with the Bills this week, and that's with Isaiah Likely still out. So I have to wonder what it looks like when Likely comes back in a few weeks. All right, let's get into some of the players that I'm high on and low on for week two. It's the BB list. All right, the quarterback spot on my bullish list this week could have went a few ways, but I went with New England Patriots quarterback Drake May. The Dolphins are coming off a bad week one loss to the Colts, and even though they lost as well, I think the Patriots and May are going to come in ready to sling the rock. And I think May connects on multiple touchdown passes this week. The top running back on my bullish list this week, San Francisco 49ers running back Christian McCaffrey. Now, with seemingly everybody else injured on the 49ers offense, I'd expect almost everything to go through McCaffrey this week, and we've seen what he could do in the past when he gets a heavy workload like that. I'd expect multiple touchdowns from McCaffrey this week. The top receiver on my bullish list this week, Cincinnati Bengals receiver T. Higgins. Now, the Jags know the Bengals are going to want to do everything they can to get off to a hot start in their home opener, especially after a slow start in Cleveland. And they're going to want to do everything they can to shut down Jamar Chase. But unfortunately, that's going to leave T. Higgins to do some damage. And I think this is one of those weeks we could see T. Higgins pull in 2 touchdowns. All right, the top tight end on my bullish list this week, Arizona Cardinals tight end Trey McBride. After getting 9 targets in week one, I think the hot start continues for McBride against a Panthers defense that was gashed for almost 400 yards in week one. And I wouldn't be surprised to see double-digit targets and a touchdown from McBride this week. And the quarterback on my bearish list this week, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Daniel Jones. Now, I just spent all week telling you to try to get Daniel Jones off the waiver wire for your team, and hopefully you did. But hopefully you got him as a bye week or spot starter for later in the year, not for this week. Because this week's matchup is against the Denver Broncos and their number 1 ranked pass defense that gave up 62 yards in week 1. So avoid Jones this week if you can. The running back on my bearish list this week, Washington Commanders running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. Now I think Krosky-Merritt's going to have a good rookie season. But going against this revamped Packers defensive line, on the road, on a short week, is not a good recipe for a productive fantasy week. And I'd say avoid Bill this week. And the wide receiver on my bearish list this week, San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. Now you may be asking why after a 4-catch, 108-yard week 1 is Ricky Pearsall on my bearish list? Because if Brock Purdy misses this week or more weeks, then Mac Jones is taking over at quarterback. That's it. Sorry, Ricky. And the tight end on my bearish list this week, New Orleans Saints tight end Juwan Johnson. Now, Juwan Johnson was on my waiver wire grab list this week, and hopefully you were able to get him. And hopefully you have somebody else that can play the tight end position for you this week, because I don't like the matchup for Johnson with the 49ers defense that gave up 2 catches for 7 yards to the tight end position in week 1. Let's take a look and see who my blue chip and penny stock players of the week are. All right, and this week's penny stock player of the week that I'm avoiding, Carolina Panthers quarterback Bryce Young. Young had the lowest completion percentage and passer rating from week 1, and he's tied for the league lead in interceptions with 2. Now, I don't think the Cardinals' D is going to be top 10, but back-to-back road games to open the season is tough. And I think Young struggles again this week, and a big reason why he's my penny stock player to avoid in week 2. And my blue chip player of the week for week 2, Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen. And shout out to my man Glenn over at Buffalo on the Brain, who's probably never going to let me live that down. The reigning MVP got off to a hot start in week 1 against the Ravens with 4 total touchdowns. And I think he carries that momentum into week 2 against the Jets team that got shredded by Aaron Rodgers in week 1. And while the Jets have given Allen some problems in the past, over the last 3 games, he's thrown 7 touchdowns with only 1 interception against them. And I think he has another multiple touchdown game this week. And that's why he's my blue chip player of the week for week 2. All right, that'll do it for the week 1 episode of Fantasy Bankroll. Thank you so much for checking it out. Please like and subscribe. Keep bringing me those roster questions and let me know if there's anything else you want to talk about fantasy-wise on a weekly basis. Don't forget to set those lineups. Let's go.